What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mallory, joined, of course, by my co-host,
Ricky DaCosta.
Tell the folks what time it is.
Run it back.
Time to run it back. People, episode 29. Now, before I go through my normal messages, special shout-outs this week, all right? Number one, shout-out to our boy, Vocal Vike on YouTube, all right? We appreciate the love and the feedback on the comments there, man. You're helping us grow on that channel, too, as well. All positive vibes. Maybe we do a collab sometime, you know? Who knows? We are going to talk about your Minnesota Vikings in this first segment. Also, shout out to my man, special friend, Sylvester Bryant on Instagram. Anytime we got a reel or anything like that pops up, first guy to get the conversation started. So special shout out to that guy, too, as well.
Much respect.
Always asking for the love. But beautiful people across the board, you know what I'm going to say? Please like, comment, and subscribe. When you get to our platform, you click that cute little bell button, all right, man? That means you've subscribed to us, all right? And like all those comments. We're looking for those 5-star reviews. So please keep it coming. We have loved the interaction within the comments, and we're back in that algorithm, baby. I mean, it's good growth this past week.
Well, I mean, you were a jerk. You know what I mean?
No,
so ultimately,
no.
that
That
got you in the algorithm, right? It got you in the algorithm.
No.
You see what I'm saying? We were talking about Saquon. We were talking about the Eagles. We were talking about the Giants.
Absolutely.
And, you know, listen, always got to throw a little shade at the Cowboys, right?
Of course. Well, they won't be on the show this week, but I think we got to talk about them a little bit next week because they got some moves too as well. But
you want to call that moves? They've done nothing.
Yeah,
they've done nothing. And you about to pay Dak?
Contemplating.
Are you going to pay Dak $60 million?
Yeah.
And guess what? You're going to piss off CD Lamb, and you're not going to pay.
They got to pay
Micah
like 3
Parsons.
people right now. So.
Hey, listen, 3 people about to make the bag at $60 million a pop, $30 million a pop, $35 million a pop.
Tyron Smith is a Jet now, so I mean,
listen, there's some problems in Dallas. Like in all seriousness, right? Listen, you can't tell me you're not concerned, Dallas fans.
Yeah, no,
right? You're all in, and you've done nothing.
They definitely got some things. But you had a bit of a hot take last week, and something got added to that hot take. I believe you said with Russ now and the Steelers, AFC Championship bound possibly next year. Well, that's...
Whoa. Don't you have to preface certain things? Who was almost 100% accurate in their Super Bowl prediction?
Almost.
Right?
You.
Right?
Almost.
Who got the AFC Championship game 100% accurate?
You got it.
All right?
You got it.
Like one of our fans said, Shane, tell Ricky when he's right.
Sure. Are we really going backward in time though now, man? Like
we got to learn from
present.
history,
Let's
right?
focus on
Isn't
the now.
that what you would say? You got to learn from history.
I am a history teacher, so
it
that
is
is appropriate.
doomed to repeat itself.
That is appropriate.
As you were saying.
So, the Steelers, right? AFC Championship bound. Well, that's kind of interesting just because, you know, there's an old phrase, when you have 2 starting quarterbacks, you have none. Well, they just brought in Justin Fields, okay? So I guess I'll just pose this question to you right away. What does the move for Justin Fields, what does that mean for Russ?
Look, ultimately, Russ is in a prove-it year, right?
I agree.
And, you know, Russ is he's already getting paid $40 million. His financial situation is secure. At this point, Russ
He got paid to go away.
Got paid to go away.
Yeah.
Russ cares a lot about his image.
Sure.
Russ cares about his legacy.
Yep.
Right now with the Steelers, it's an opportunity to forge an additional path, I'll say. Not a new path, but an additional path.
Sure.
Right? He started off hot, won the Super Bowl, and then he has probably the worst play in Super Bowl history. Right? And now the Seahawks just gave up
Put that
on you.
maybe call 2 combination, but I mean, again, it's
He
made the throw.
He made the throw. That's all that matters, right?
That's fair.
And so
Didn't look like it was a turn and throw, like a one read, but go ahead.
Seahawks gave up on him. Broncos paid him to go away, right? You're at the end of your career now.
Richard Sherman, can't stand the guy, at least when you hear him talk about him.
And that's the other thing, right? Like from afar,
Sure.
Russ seems like the perfect family man, seems like a good dude, but the way his teammates talk about him,
a lot of it seems too rehearsed to me personally.
It does. It seems very political, and you know, I would love to see Russ let his hair down. right?
Yeah.
Just
like
relax.
he's trying
Be
to
one
be
of the
everyone's
guys.
idea of the perfect guy. Like, dude, just like be you. You don't always have to say the perfect thing all the time. Just talk.
And the crazy thing is, the locker room is where everybody's accepted, right? So, and trust me, there's a lot of dudes in there doing things that you don't ever
Are far
want.
from perfect.
100%. So, with that being said, I think with the Steelers, great tradition, amazing coaching. And so now Russ is going to have stability. He's going to have leadership in the coaching department. He's going to
Good coach in
be
Mike Tomlin.
with a phenomenal franchise. So all he has to do is do what he did last year, 26 touchdowns, 6 to 8 interceptions, and get the Steelers into the playoffs, win a game, and push for that AFC championship game to potentially make it to the Super Bowl and change the narrative around him.
Okay. So here's my question to you then, because I'll go into the approach right away. Looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would assume Russell Wilson is the starting quarterback coming into this year. He's the more proven commodity of the two. He's the better thrower of the football. He has more overall experience. Granted, what's the leash looking like for Russ in terms of like how much leniency is he gonna be given? And the question I guess I should go kind of further in elaborating with that is, what is it? 1 game, 2 games? Like if Russ throws struggle, if Pittsburgh comes out to a struggling start, maybe they say they go 1-2 or 2-3 to start the season. I mean, what's the line where all of a sudden Pittsburgh's like, we're going to Fields now?
Listen,
What
I
would you
think
say?
right, Mike Tomlin is extremely loyal.
Yep.
Right, and so he's going to give Russ every single opportunity.
But you're in the AFC.
He's going to give Russ every opportunity to fail, right? So Justin Fields has to clearly beat him out, right? Right, Russ just has to be a complete disaster because at this point,
If they start 0-3, are they pulling the
he's
hook?
done. His career's over. 100%.
Gotcha.
Right. So Russ will have every opportunity to succeed. He'll go in. He'll get a fair shot to take the Steelers to the playoffs and make a championship push. Right. Because Tomlin also is fully aware that if he benches him, his career is done. Right, that's going to be 3 teams in 4 years to fully give up on you.
Sure.
And Mike Tomlin, the ultimate coach, the ultimate person that's about developing. In terms of Russ's physical ability, he still has, he still can throw. He can still throw the long ball, right? Can't move around as much, but he can
Not
still
like
do
he
enough,
once could.
right?
Sure.
So Russ will be given.
Call him a slightly above average mobile quarterback.
But
in that
again,
department.
but think about this, and this is where my take came from. Mike Tomlin never had a losing season, right? So that means without Russ, they're going 9-7.
fair,
Right? They've had terrible
9-8.
quarterback play.
9-8.
Right? 9-8.
Always
Excuse
forget
me.
that
Thank
extra
you, thank
game,
you.
man. Yeah.
And so with that being the case, they're going to win 9 games, right?
Okay.
You throw Russ in there, they'll win 1 more. At least, respectively, they should win 2, right? So now you're talking about what? Them being 11-7, right?
Okay.
Plus or minus,
Sure,
give
sure.
or take. And so now they're going to have a
11-6.
11-6. 11-6. All right, thank you.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all
yeah.
good.
And so now, all of a sudden, right, you're talking about winning the division.
Sure.
You're talking about a home playoff game.
Sure.
Right? That's going to set them up for success.
Tough division, too. I think Russ is going to be the starter. I'm just really curious to see where this goes because if you're so confident in the Russ move, the Fields move just does make me wonder a little bit. Like are you hedging your bet? Is this more an insurance policy? Are you trying to see how the battle shakes out in camp? Because I got to believe both of them are coming to Pittsburgh. They're learning a brand new system. You're going to need your starter to get as many reps as possible to get up into that system. So it's hard for me to think there's a quarterback battle per se. But is this somewhat of an open season thing? Like once we get to preseason, is it going to be if Fields outplays him, is he going to get a shot? Or is Russ on question, he's going to be the starter for this season?
Here's what I think that's going to happen. Russ 100% will be the starter.
Okay.
Right?
And barring no disaster, it's his job to lose.
His job to lose.
Okay.
Right? I think Tomlin is going to take this as an opportunity for this to be Justin Fields' redshirt year.
Okay.
Right? He will play. He will come in certain packages.
And judge
right?
basically based on
Red
how
zone
you finish
opportunities.
but judge based on how you finish the season, like what you're going to do with each.
Remember,
I guess,
Justin
long-term.
Fields is 25 years old.
he's still young.
Right? So he has potentially at least another strong 5 to 6 good years in him.
Still
right?
think he deserves one more shot somewhere.
So
I
with
do.
that being the case, make this his redshirt year. Make this his opportunity to learn the system. Put Russ out there. Give him every
Learn behind a vet.
opportunity to fail. Learn behind a vet. really get entrenched in the Steelers' new offense.
Okay.
Right. I think they're going to extend Fields and give him a very similar to like a Jordan Love contract, where instead of, taking his 5th-year option, make him sign a 2-year deal, right? Where he's going to be able to be a free agent in a short amount of time. He's not a hard hit against the cap. And then he'll have every opportunity next year to come out, play, and be super, super successful. So I think that's the playbook.
Sure.
Russ will have the opportunity to play, take him to the playoffs, and potentially win a Super Bowl, and then move on and go get the bag from someone else, and then use Justin Fields to be able to be their long-term success.
Listen, I got no ill will towards the Steelers at all. That's a proud, very respectful franchise. I'd like to see them come back to prominence and actually win meaningful games in the playoffs. I just think it's a fascinating situation at the same time to bring in 2 former starting quarterbacks. Both obviously went through their struggles with their former franchises. How does it work out in this whole situation? I am really curious to hear that.
But
What
they do have in common is they're both at a point in their career that they just need stability.
Sure.
They need consistency.
Good point.
And the Steelers will provide them that and allow Russ to go get his Baker Mayfield bag, right? And allow Justin Fields to be set up to have long-term success.
Okay. So let's move over then a little bit of the colder area of the United States we're talking about. And this is for you, Vocal Vike, all right? The Minnesota Vikings, all right? They move Kirk Cousins, obviously. He goes to the Atlanta Falcons. We spoke about that last week. Now Justin Jefferson entering the 5th year of his deal, so the final year of his rookie contract, turns down a $30 million year extension. Now, does that mean he no longer wants to be in Minnesota, or does he expect them to pony up and give him the bag?
Listen, first of all, the rumor is they offered him $30 million a year and he turned it down.
Okay.
Right? So if I had to guess, they probably offered him $30 million a year for 5 years. That's $150 million. I think he's learned a lot from Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
And so I think Justin Jefferson is focused on becoming a free agent. He plays this season, he's going to get about $19 million. After that, they can franchise tag him only 2 more times, right? And what ends up happening is he can hit the free agency market, right? Because here's the thing. He'll play this season. If they tag him the next,
Sure.
he's one
gotta
year
play.
away from being free.
Yes.
Right? And now he can really sign the bag. Look at Kirk Cousins. Look at Dak Prescott. Right? Those guys that got hit with multiple franchise tags, they're making the most amount of money in NFL history.
Sure.
So I think Justin Jefferson noticed this, and he's saying to himself, either I go where I want to and I'll give them a discount, or I'm going to go get the bag. If I had to guess, he wants $35 million a year for 5 years.
So ultimately, you think you're leaning towards this is just a negotiating ploy. I want basically the max dollars if you want me to stay in Minnesota. Not necessarily that he might want to leave to go somewhere on a team that's going to be more likely to be a contender. Again, when he was playing with Kirk Cousins before, they were a playoff team. They had lost to the Giants the previous year before Kirk Cousins gets hurt. You would think, at least on paper, the way the Vikings looked like they were somewhat starting to turn their season around, that win in San Francisco just before Kirk gets hurt, seemed like they could have easily made a run. Now, the NFC North, was obviously very tough this year with how the Green Bay Packers finished up their season. But if Minnesota stays healthy, it's definitely possible they still could have made the playoffs. I'm inclined to think that maybe Justin Jefferson wants to go to a contender and go and obviously look for his bag too as well. Because if $30 million wasn't enough, I think maybe it's the combination of getting with a more suitable quarterback situation. He's used to more competent quarterback play, along with the fact of getting that bag too as well. Could you see any other places that he could possibly end up?
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, if he became a free agent, right, obviously I think the whole league is going after him. But I think
especially contenders.
100%. Yeah. But if I'm him, I want to be paired with the big-time quarterback, because I think what he's doing is looking at the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase situation, and how he has a quarterback that's feeding him, and how dynamic
stability
Chase
at that
is.
position is
Now,
huge.
don't get me wrong, Kirk was showing Jefferson a lot of love.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
4th and 18, let me just throw it up there.
Yeah, but it was questionable whether they could win or not. So I think if I was Justin and I hit the free agency market, I'm going after Buffalo, right? You know, that's a great opportunity. Younger, move on from Stephon Diggs. That's a place where I think he'd want to go.
Interesting one.
If I'm him, I would want to go to and a team that could possibly afford him.
Diggs, get whatever you can to get back. You're probably going to give up a first rounder if you'd want to go and get somebody like Jefferson. Yeah. You're giving up a minimum.
But no, let's assume he's a free agent and he can go wherever he wanted to go.
True. Yep.
The
Unless
other
they
team,
tag him. If they tag
No,
him,
I'm
they
saying,
still
I'm
have the
saying 2
rights.
years
I
from
got
now,
you.
right?
I got you.
The other thing that if I'm Justin Jefferson and I'm 100% a free agent and the place I want to go, I would want to go to the Houston Texans, right? I get CJ Stroud, right? He's on a rookie
They
contract,
might be able.
right? And so they can move some stuff around and be able to afford him, pay him the bag before they have to pay CJ Stroud. Those
Most
are
of
the
their
two
guys
teams.
are younger too.
Those
like Will
are
Anderson's on a rookie deal. CJ Stroud's on a rookie deal. Tank Dell, Nico Collins. The Texans are in a great situation now. I think their big contracts are Laramie Tunsil is the highest paid left tackle in the league, rightfully so. He's a great player. And then bringing in Daniil Hunter now. That's only 2 years, but you're playing him close to top of the line pass rusher money. But it seems like you don't have a lot of money overall sunk into other assets. So that is an interesting scenario that you do pose.
Yeah, those are the two teams. What about you? Where do you what two teams would either that you think he'd be interested in go to or you would like to see him go to?
Well, so, okay, I would definitely, Houston, I think, is definitely a viable one, especially given like how their money situation is set up. And I mean, they're coming in, they're coming in with that royal flush, like I said, this year. They look like they're really going for a push at that AFC championship, if not trying to win on and maximize on a young quarterback in that Super Bowl window, because it's one of the best times to go for it. The other team I could see going for it, they just lost a big-time receiver too as well, and a team that's in a little bit of a state of flux, quarterback needing to prove himself, Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I don't know exactly where their salary cap situation is, but I do know that with Calvin Ridley obviously leaving the books, they do have a void for that type of a receiver to go and fill that spot. Trevor Lawrence is in kind of one of these prove-it years. He had his rookie year, which I think a lot of people don't really hold against him. The Urban Meyer thing was a fiasco. That second year with Doug Peterson, very good. He throws for 30 touchdowns, I think just under 10 interceptions. He's ranked as a top 10 quarterback in the league. Last year, little come see, come saw. A little bit of a mixed bag in terms of the results. So this is kind of like a prove-it year for him, because they're going to try and make a decision over this next season as to whether they're going to sink long-term money. Well, wouldn't you like to put a nice stud receiver with him to go and see, maximize the potential out of him? Because Jacksonville's got a lot of pieces. But if you're trying to go try and play a quarterback big money, you at least want to try and put the prerequisite things around him to see what he can do when he's at his close to full strength. So I'd say I agree with you on the Houston move. Jacksonville might be a little bit of a sleeper in that sweepstakes as well, though.
Yeah, it's real interesting.
So,
but I mean, they got to pay Trevor. But listen, again, no state taxes.
Trevor's in his 4th year, so technically they could take the 5th, but you know how quarterbacks work. Usually those deals are going to work out pretty soon. Yeah. So listen, new kind of thing for this last part of segment number 1. Aaron Donald just recently retired. Stud, one of my favorite defensive players I've ever watched. I had a friend shoot me a text message. Said, I'd really like to see you guys go and talk about Aaron Donald, ranking him not only against J.J. Watt, okay, but his rank as a defensive player all time, and then compare him up with someone like Reggie White, okay? Now, I'm an old school guy when it comes to football. I'm a big Warren Sapp head, all right? Warren Sapp was one of my favorite defensive players. Unfortunately, when I go through the numbers, Warren Sapp, his resume overall can't really stack up with JJ's, Reggie's, or Aaron Donald's when you go the individual accolades, plus the fact, maybe some of the youngins don't remember this, Warren Sapp played on one of the greatest defenses I ever watched. Those old school, the Tampa Bay Bucks teams. You want the old school Tampa 2. I mean, you had guys like Derek Brooks, John Lynch, Simeon Rice, Chidi Ahanatu. I mean, those defense, Rondé Barber, those defenses were some bad boys. The year they won the Super Bowl, actually, their defense, I think, had 3 or 4 turnovers in that game against the Oakland Raiders, Rich Gannon.
Yeah.
Who was the coach?
Gruden.
It was Gruden. Gruden was the coach back in the day. Gannon was the quarterback. But a defensive back won the Super Bowl MVP. So that defense was bad, man. They used to go at it with that greatest show on turf, Rams. But I digress. Warren Sapp, I didn't forget you, big boy, but unfortunately the accolades don't quite match up. So if I were to ask you, Aaron Donald versus J.J. Watt, who you got as the highest ranked defensive player, being that they were contemporaries and they played in a similar time period?
Easy decision for me, Aaron Donald.
Okay.
Right? Like, I don't even got to think about it. Aaron Donald. All right, for two reasons, right?
Both three-time Defensive Player of the Year award winners, too, as well.
All right, so here's the thing, right? So I think J.J. Watt, he started off hot, right? 17, 16,
monster.
20 sacks.
Absolute monster.
But then, got, riddled by injuries, right? Didn't play as
Lost
many
almost
full
2 full seasons due to
right?
injury.
Lost 2 full seasons versus Aaron Donald, like, really simple, clear-cut resume.
Sure.
10 years, 8 All-Pros,
8 first-team All-Pros.
right? First-team All-Pros, as well as 10 Pro Bowl seasons,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Super Bowl ring. No Super Bowl ring for J.J.
And
Watt.
2 Super Bowl appearances for Aaron Donald, too, as well.
Right? And
The
yes,
ring
2
and 2 appearances.
2 appearances.
Yep.
So
where they only gave up 13 points in that game in a loss.
right? And
So,
think about this, right? Aaron Donald played in the middle,
Yep.
right? So he was facing
Love
double
it.
and triple teams.
Sure.
Versus J.J. Watt was on the exterior,
Yeah.
right?
He'd
and a
play
lot
in the
more
middle
one-on-one.
sometimes, but not to the
enough,
bulker level
not
of the
enough.
Donald.
So I'll be honest with you, I don't even think J.J. is in his world.
Wow. So listen, here's what I'll say. JJ was a bad dude. They both won 3 Defensive Players of the Year. You pointed out the Super Bowl difference. The one thing JJ does have going for him is finished second in league MVP voting. Now, I forgot to preface this too.
So
This conversation-
because he was a bridesmaid, he should
No,
get a lot
no,
of
no,
credit.
no.
What are
I'm
we
just
talking
saying
about
that
here?
if a defensive player finishes that high in the voting, obviously he was very impactful. I'm with you. Aaron Donald's better. I forgot to preface this whole conversation with this, people. And Cowboys, Eagles, and NFC East people are probably not going to want to hear this, but it's just the facts. We're going into this conversation with a clear-cut understanding that the greatest defensive football player is one LT. That's Lawrence Taylor. Why? I know you guys are probably going to want to bring up some numbers. Well, he didn't do this and he didn't do that. Hogwash. It's very simple. Only defensive player in league history to win the league MVP. 2-time Super Bowl champion. All right? On top of that, he is responsible for 2 very impactful things that still hit the league today. The pass rusher is the number 1 paid position on the defense because of what he could do. And the left tackle, the quarterback's blind side, is the highest paid offensive line position on that league because that guy made it a point. You better protect the quarterback's blind side because otherwise he's going to come in and shred you up like he did Theismann back in the day. No disrespect to Theismann too. But as long as we have that understanding, basically right now we're arguing for who's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, more or less.
I mean, wait, just time.
Go ahead,
You
go
say
ahead.
2, 3, 4, and 5. You have to bring up Deion Sanders.
Oh, he's in this conversation.
Like you just if you're gonna bring up LT, my guy, I gotta like Deion Sanders. You gotta put respect on his name.
Deion's in the top 5.
So if you're gonna bring up LT, make sure
Deion's in the top 5.
top 5.
He's in
you
the
mean
top
top
5.
2? What kind of conversation are we having here?
Ooh, wow,
Right, like
wow.
it
All
is,
right.
it is very simple.
So hold
we
on
got
a second here.
LT and we got Deion Sanders, and that's just facts.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Just like-
well, there's a gentleman here.
There's a sun and there's a moon. There's
First of all-
freaking LT and there's Deion.
RIP to Mr. One Reggie White, who you seem to have either not watched or totally forgot about, but that was a bad man. Let's go through the resumes here. Let's compare him and Donald first, all right? So you brought up the 8 first-team All-Pros out of 10 seasons. I flipped the page. Reggie White played a grand total of 15 seasons. In those 15 seasons, he made 8 first-team All-Pros, okay? So Aaron Donald, better percentages, but in those 15 seasons, he has 13 total All-Pros, all right? Let's take a little bit of a further look. Now, Aaron Donald has 1 more Defensive Player of the Year on him. Reggie White has 5 top 5 finishes for Defensive Player of the Year. Aaron Donald has 4 top 5 finishes for for Defensive Player of the Year. Reggie White also has a Super Bowl championship and went to 2. Him and Donald are equal there. 198 career sacks to 111 career sacks for Aaron Donald. Now, spent more of his time, obviously, on the edge, but was a big man too as well. And when he was in Philly, he actually did play on the interior. 1,111 combined tackles for his career. Aaron Donald's 543. They didn't track quarterback hits while Reggie White was playing. They didn't actually start tracking that statistic until 2006. They also did not keep tackles for loss until 1999. So unfortunately, it's hard to do a stat-by-stat comparison or face by them. But if we do sacks per season, Aaron Donald, 11.1. Reggie White, 13.2. Tackles per season. Aaron Donald, 54. Reggie White, 74. Like I said, no quarterback hits, no tackles for loss. How about forced fumbles, right? That's a pretty good statistic, right, for a guy who's playing on the defense. Aaron Donald, 24, good for 2.4 forced fumbles a season. Reggie White, 33, good for 2.2. So if I'm breaking this down when I break those stats down to you, and again, This is just this is the first time we've done anything like this, right?
Sure.
Where we kind of break down, go like a criteria by criteria basis. Who do you like more there, Reggie White or Aaron Donald?
So this is why you're such a LeBron James fan. All right? You just love statistics.
I do
right?
love statistics.
You love accumulators, right?
You got to do it.
Listen, at the end of the day, there's one simple metrics that determines whether you're one of the greatest of all time.
Okay.
Not like you're great, not like you're a Hall of Famer.
Gotcha.
You're the greatest,
Gotcha.
right? Or in that one,
Gotcha.
2 category, right? What does LT and Dion have in common? Now, I'll say this, right, that Aaron Donald absolutely has it.
He does.
And Reggie White's
got
has
it
some
too.
of it, right? Some of it, right? And I'm talking about fear. I'm talking about intimidation. Football is a sport of nothing but grown men.
I love this
right?
because the old heads are going to come out on this conversation
Listen,
and go, you don't know Reggie White, boy.
But I am telling you that LT instilled fear in his opponent.
He's
right.
He's number one.
100%.
His position's not up for debate.
But no, I'm going somewhere with
debating
it.
2, 3,
No,
4.
I'm
Okay.
going somewhere with
Fair.
it. Right. Fear. Right. Intimidation.
That's
Changed
fair.
the record books.
That's
Changed
fair.
everything. Right.
That's
2
fair.
Super Bowls. Dion shut down half the field. Literally, he had to go play receiver just so he can touch the rock because half of the field wasn't going to throw to him. Yeah. Just half of the field.
Only one Defensive Player of the Year award. Only one.
2 Super Bowls. But again, this is where
On some of the greatest teams of all time.
This
though.
is where
And that hurts for me to
because
say.
he
It's the
was
Dallas
on
Cowboys.
it. Because he was on it.
And
right?
not just him.
First of all,
And
fine.
Tuttle Jones, Leon Lett, Michael
He's still the
Irvin,
best player.
Emmett Smith, Larry
He's still the
Allen,
best player.
Troy Aikman.
He's still the best player.
Some bad dudes
He's still the
on
best
those
player.
Cowboys fans.
Everybody you name, he's greater than. Everyone. There's only one person you can name that deserves recognition, Jarrett Rice.
Okay.
Right? That's it. Everybody else, Dion is significantly better than, right?
So you got Dion as number 2.
100%.
Dion's number 2 all time.
100%. And listen, it's Dion and it's LT, and depending on the day, I go back and forth. But at the end of the day, what do they have in common? That fear, that intimidation. Now, listen, don't get me wrong. Reggie White was awesome, right?
Bad dude.
Bad
man.
dude.
He was a bad dude.
Bad SOB.
They said he was the best after LT. Reggie White was the next best pass rusher.
Now, when you look at Aaron Donald, right? They were doubling.
I'm a big Donald fan for the
and
record. I am.
triple teaming him, right? He got his buddies contracts because he's facing a triple team while 2 other guys are responsible for 3 people, right? From day one, he was a all-pro and a Pro Bowler.
Sure.
Right? Now, again, he's ending his career early. Some of us are still holding out hope that he's going to come back and get that $24 million that he has
I
on
want
the
him to
table.
come back mid-season.
But I'm just saying.
I can't believe he's done.
And he did it from the defensive tackle position, right? LT, Reggie, they
Still
did it
finished
from the
All-Pro.
outside,
Yep.
right? Aaron did it from the inside. And if you left him one-on-one, it was a win.
He was unblockable.
2-on-2 2-on-1 wasn't fair.
Same thing I said about White, but
literally
sure.
needed 3 men to slow him down. So quarterbacks are rejoicing. Quarterbacks are sleeping so well at night. Their wives are so thankful because they will not be sacked by Aaron Donald anymore.
wives.
Right?
This guy and his
That
wives
is
and
that is who we're
relationship
talking
analogies.
about.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the metric. I could care less about all those statistics that you got.
So one
Aaron
LT
Donald was affecting quarterbacks' wives.
Wow.
Right? That's how good that man was.
So one, if I'm not understanding you correctly, it'd be 1 LT, 2 Dion, 3 Donald, 4 Reggie White.
It's looking that way.
Okay. I would probably say 1 LT, 2 Aaron Donald, 3 Deion Sanders,
Yo,
and 4
This MFer
Reggie White.
is disrespectful.
Yeah.
Dion,
For the record,
Dion, he doesn't get it.
No disrespect
right?
towards you.
Did you even watch him?
I did.
And you still have the balls to say he's number 2?
I did. Because I think that the defensive linemen just impact the game at a higher level. That's the only reason why I would put him above him. even though I would still sit there and say that Deion is the greatest cornerback of all time. But this just starts
Disrespectful.
one of those GOAT debates. That's all the time we have for segment number 1. Please don't forget to chime in, folks. But we'll be right back for segment number 2 when we run it back. What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mallory, joined again by my co-host, Mr. DaCosta, and this is segment number 2 of Run It Back. All right? Now, you bracketologists, you madness, all you people out there, we are going to talk a little bit of March Madness. Now, got to tell you, some of my students are going to be shocked because they bring it up, and I'm like, be quiet. I don't care about your bracket. But now we do, people, all right? So what me, okay, and my co-host, Mr. DaCosta, have done is
With
we
production?
With production. We have analyzed the brackets. We've become our own little you've heard of Scientology. Well, this is bracketology, okay? We're doing our own version of bracketology.
Terrible.
We have
So
looked
terrible.
at the 4 quadrants of the bracket, and we have taken our picks of the 4 teams that we're going to sit down, we're going to follow. We're going to try to kind of give you a brief synopsis / explanation as to why. If nothing else, I'll probably parlay mine into some wrestling correlative factors and why I pick certain seeds.
Oh, you said
that
parlay.
I
I thought you was going to talk about a few shekels.
do. No. That's not me. That's all your game right there, though. But if you want to throw out a few tips to my students, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to hear you about the betting odds. But you ready to do this?
Let's do it.
Go through some
right.
of your
Listen,
picks
and
on March
this is
Madness?
about fun, right? You know,
Absolutely.
we want to be engaged. We're gonna pick a team in each bracket. We're not just gonna pick one seeds. We're gonna follow them, and we're gonna report back and let you know. Look, we're gonna tell you who we think is gonna win, who can go far, make some noise, have a little Cinderella in there, have some fun. But what makes this most important, it's got to be interactive. Tell us who your 4 Cinderellas are, or who do you think is gonna make it?
Maybe
right?
a
This is
team we
supposed to be-
missed, too. Like a team that we
yeah,
should be
who
more
would you
on the
have taken,
lookout
right?
for.
So we
Yeah.
definitely want to have a little bit of fun with
Tell
this.
us where we totally messed up, too, with our picks and why we're completely wrong. We want it all, man. We want the feedback.
Facts. So bring it on.
So you want to start or you want me to start?
It doesn't matter.
All right, we'll go back and forth. I'll start with my first pick. I'm going with, now I forget which side of the bracket this
who,
is.
Yeah, who you going with?
I'm going with number 11 seed NC State.
All right, so
now,
we're in the South. We're in the South region.
All right, so we're in the South region. My breakdown is as follows. I mean, first of all, they are the Wolfpack, right?
I believe so.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so I mean, nothing's more ferocious in a basketball tournament than the Wolfpack, man.
Oh, no.
I mean, they're
What are we
coming.
doing?
They're
What are
coming.
we
They're
doing?
coming
Oh,
30
my
deep,
God.
man. They're coming to take down their prey any way they can. That's what a Wolfpack does.
So you really picked your selections
No.
based on animals?
No.
Is that what
Here's
we're doing
I
here?
will say.
You went to mascots?
No, here's what I will actually say.
Lord have mercy.
My other 3 picks are actually much higher seeds. So I felt like, you know what? Every year, the one thing I do hear about is you always hear about like this 11 or 12 seed that makes it much further than you're expecting to. Something about that Wolfpack, those uniforms. I did actually get to see one game in which they won this year too. Looked like they got some decent length on the court. They got some athleticism. And I think, if memory serves, they are a decent 3-point shooting team, which it seems this time of year seems to kind of be the big play. If you got some athleticism, you can hit some 3-point shots. That's what it comes down to. Also, heck of a crowd following that they have too down there in NC State. Their wrestling team is very good too as well. And it's that 11 seed who's playing good at the right time, just like in a big wrestling tournament. That's the guy you don't want to see because it doesn't matter that he's the 11 seed. How did he finish his year? So I'm going with the NC State Wolfpack as my surprise in the South bracket, you called it? You see, in wrestling, there's only one bracket, all right? Because there's only one.
We're talking about basketball, sir.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
I know.
clearly,
but I have to do some of my correlative factors.
I see it. Clearly, you made your decision based on mascots, right?
Yes.
And we will be monitoring
Yes.
that from now on. But,
NC State Wolfpack, tell me if I'm crazy.
but no, listen. In that region, I ended up going with Kentucky. Right, big
Safe,
Calipari
boring
fan,
pick.
right?
Oh, traditional power. I'm just
Listen,
gonna go
ain't
with that.
nothing wrong with some blue blood, all right? Ain't
right,
nothing wrong with
fair.
some blue blood.
I
And look,
gotcha.
ultimately, I think the
Is
Kentucky is
Calipari
due.
still there?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
It's Calipari, right? I just want to make sure. Okay, just making sure. Just making
But
sure.
no, listen, I think they're due, right? You know, he's won one national championship there. About the tournament, like you mentioned, it's about really, really good guard play.
Even the
And
record, though, maybe for like most first round draft picks, man. I mean, Kentucky was like a factory at one point.
100%. And so I think they're due. I think they're due to go far. I think, you know, they have a legit shot to win it all, right? And listen, we want to see it, right? You know, when it comes to March Madness, as much as we love the Cinderella, we want to see some of those blue bloods in there, whether
Sure.
they win, whether they get upset. And I'd love to see Kentucky go far. So coming out of that region, I got Kentucky, as well as I had a friend, you know,
The Wildcats, right?
The
Kentucky?
Wildcats. I had a
Okay.
friend. He passed, and he was a huge, Kentucky fan, college basketball.
that, man.
So rooting for him, and in honor of him, I should really say. And again, Calipari needs another one to validate his time there, as well as his legacy.
So he still got that like beautiful slick back, not a strand out of place hair.
Oh, he's a mobster for sure.
Oh
Absolutely.
man, that guy looked like the sports agent of all sports agents. Do you remember the old movie He Got Game
Yes.
with Jesus Shuttlesworth?
Yes.
Remember when he meets the agent for the first time? He's a little bit shorter. He was just like, just because I'm Italian, Jesus, doesn't mean I work in the mob. I'm a sports agent. Like that. That guy reminds me of John Calipari. Now Calipari, of course, a little bit taller, but nonetheless, people, if you never see that movie too, go check it out. He Got
I
Game.
pray if you were a sports fan, you've seen that movie. That's why my face.
You see what he did there? Pray, Jesus, Shuttlesworth.
Oh my God.
Ah, yeah. All right. I'm going
Was
to
that
my
a dad joke? What are we
I'm
doing
going-
here?
I'm going to my-
mascots and dad jokes.
Oh, yeah, they're here. Now, going to my number 2 team that I'm picking here. Now, this one I think has got a little bit more merit to it. I'm going with Iowa State. Can you tell me, please, which bracket that's out of?
Iowa State. Now we are in the East.
Okay, so they're in the Eastern bracket. Now, I don't know their total record. I haven't looked at all the records of the teams, but I do know this. Any team that finishes a year winning a conference tournament, to me, I'm going to make another wrestling analogy though. We always say he's getting hot at the right time. Well, this tournament seems to be a lot about who's getting hot at the right time. And it's one game. It's not a series of games, anything like that. It's about who's hot coming into that tournament and who's ready to just go out and win one games. Well, Iowa State, coming off of their win in the Big 12 tourney, I think they're ready to go. They also have arguably the greatest college athlete in the history of college sports, one Cale Sanderson, who formerly competed for them, 159-0. In wrestling. I made another wrestling analogy. No mascots, though. I do know they're the Cyclones.
Okay. Listen, I'm going with UConn here, right? Again, another blue blood. But listen, they have the experience.
This guy's safe.
right? They have
He's
the
safe.
experience.
Kentucky. UConn.
Lord, have
Really
mercy.
stepping out on a limb here.
At the end of the day, right? I'm going with UConn. Look, I think they could do it again, right? Like
Sure.
you don't really see too much back to back.
I have heard a
And
lot of overwhelming talk that they are the
100%.
favorite, so.
And listen, it would be nice to see. Look, the Chiefs won back to back. It would be nice to see UConn go back to back.
That's cool.
right? Have some consistency. They got a really good recruiting class, right? They have experience. They have good guard play. So for me, I got to go, in that northern region and stick with, a local blue blood. And so I'm going with UConn here.
Okay. So I'm going with my third team, who is a 3 seed. Now, this one, I've actually got a couple of stats to back it up. So a student actually threw this team out to me today in class. So I get a shout out to him for giving me this pick. But I'm going to go with Creighton University. Okay. Now, interesting stat that he showed me in the last however many years, the final 4 teams. Okay. I don't know if it's 1, 2, or all of them, but in the final 4 teams, the statistic that is most likely to get you there to be top 25 in three-point shooting and top 10 in defense. Creighton is both of those things, okay? They're a 3 seed, which again, that's a dangerous part on the bracket right there. That 3 seed is, guys, he's close to 2, and he's not that far away from 1. If he has that right tournament, that right break, and all those stats break in his favor, that 3 seed's the guy that's dangerous. You know who else, once upon a time?
Lord. Let me guess, he was wrestling.
Was a 3 seed in a tournament. He was actually called the dark horse of the tournament. He went on to win his first of 3 region titles. This guy right here. One Shane Mallory was the dark horse his sophomore year of the Region 3 wrestling tournament, and he came out on top, and he never lost a region match again. So we're going with Creighton University, baby. Woo! That's wrestling analogy number 3.
I think we all know where this is going, Mr. Mallory. I think we all know where it's going. Your kids are gonna roast you tomorrow. All right.
Probably.
Listen, like my theme, we've been going with the Blue Bloods, right? As much as I would love to go with Kansas here, right?
The Jayhawks.
The Jayhawks. That is correct.
That is the Jayhawks.
You're killing it right now. I'm gonna go with Gonzaga.
I like that pick. Adam Morrison.
Right? Nobody's talking about them. They're not a number 1 seed. They've gone underrated, right? And I think this is the perfect sleeper opportunity. They have low expectation, right? They don't have the pressure. But they have really good coaching, right? They have a really good system.
Okay.
And so I think they have a really good opportunity to succeed. And if I'm being honest, Purdue is in that bracket. So they are going to fail.
Yeah, that's
right?
the least trusted
The one
seed
thing
I
we
have.
know right now is that we cannot rely on Purdue.
Can't
right?
trust a Boilermaker.
So with that being the case, somebody's got to come out of that region. When you start to look at that region as well, Tennessee's in it, right? They're a number 2 seed. That might be an opportunity for them to go far. That is actually the easiest
What's
region.
it, Bruce Pearl?
Right? No, that Pearl, if I'm not mistaken,
Oh, he
is
moved. He used
Auburn.
to be Tennessee,
right?
though. Like years ago. Yeah, don't you remember? He used to be the one he paint his chest orange and everything. I digress.
There
Go
you
on.
go. There you go. Stay focused.
No
right?
wrestling analogy.
And so for me, right, that
Stay focused.
that region is completely wide open. I think a lower seed is coming out of there. Listen, anything could happen. I'm not even mad at your Creighton pick. That's a good one. I can also see Kansas just taking it over, right?
Okay.
But for me, I'm going with Gonzaga to come out of there.
All right. Creighton, the only thing is I am disappointed. I don't know their mascot. There's a lot of these weird teams like Creighton and Wichita State and things like that. Dwayne Wade. I think. No, Marquette.
No.
That's Marquette.
Yeah, Marquette.
My bad,
Marquette.
my bad,
I'm
my bad.
pretty sure that Creighton is a bird
Some type of bird. All right.
and blue.
Okay. Well, my final pick, it's a 1 seed. And whenever they're a 1 seed, you never pick against this blue blood. I'm talking about the UNC Tar Heels, baby. I mean, anytime the UNC Tar Heels are number 1 seed, come on, guys. Michael Jordan's alma mater, number 1. When they come in as a number 1 seed, they come about that business. Also a very good wrestling team as well, all right? Quick story about that to relate to wrestling. A kid that I formerly coached who just qualified for the Olympic team. Shout out
that's
to Mr.
awesome. That's
shout out
awesome.
to Mr. Ethan Ramos. Okay, he qualified for the Puerto Rican Olympic team. Was a state champ that I tutored and mentored. Was an All-American for who? The UNC Tar Heels. But I'm going to show you how deep my UNC Tar Heel blood runs. I remember Tyler Hansborough. All right. That's the last time I think I saw UNC win a national title. But I go all the way back to, and there's going to be some old heads go, oh, I remember this, Ed Cota, Shaman Williams, Anton Jameson, and of course, Vin Sanity. Vince Carter, baby. Little Eric Montross, throw that in there too as well. You never bet against the Tar Heels when they're a 1 seed, baby. I got the Tar Heels making it to the Final Four.
That is very, very interesting. And I can't be mad at you at that pick.
Okay.
Right?
What bracket is that, by the way?
That is the West.
They are.
That is the West.
Okay.
Right? That is
And they're the
West,
Tar Heels.
Right? Yes, they are.
Yes.
So listen, it's March Madness, all right? So you can't just pick a 1
Look at how I'm
seed.
acting.
Clearly,
Yeah,
right?
I'm mad.
Stop it. But I'm going with Alabama, right? I'm going with Alabama, right? I think they're going to upset.
That's not a basketball school.
They're going to upset UNC.
Whoa.
Right? And they're going to surprise everyone. I think they're going to go far. They play fast. They can really score.
You really want to talk about that against Michael Jordan's alma mater? I'm just saying. He
listen.
shows up to the game.
It's not about nostalgia.
Mike, you heard that? He said Alabama's going to upset the Tar Heels.
Alabama's going to go far here, and to me, they're going to be a nice little darling. Now, they're not a super low seed. They're a 4 seed, but I think Alabama's going to do the damn thing.
Wow. Alabama. Okay. I think you're out of your mind if you think they're going to beat the Tar Heels, but I mean, you were.
You know this is recorded, right?
The boiler.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
if
I
they
know.
play,
Yeah.
right, make sure you show up for the episode.
Maybe,
30.
you know what? I'm not a betting man, but maybe we do plant down a couple shekels on that game because I'm going to have every bit the confidence that the Tar Heels are going to come out and wipe the floor with your Crimson Tide. The silliness of that statement right there.
I again, Last week you were being a jerk. This week you're just freaking outrageous.
Am I outrageous or am I just mad?
Stop it. What are
Stop
we doing
the
here?
madness.
What are we doing? Did you write this?
Yeah,
we didn't prep for this in the pre-production meeting.
He's all thrown off. But here's what I'll say also to you guys. Please throw us out a team that you think we missed. Tell us whether you like our picks, you disagree with them, whatnot. All right. Throw out a teammate, like throw out one of our picks maybe that you liked, one of our picks maybe you disagree with, and then maybe a team for each of us that we maybe didn't overlook that we should be taking a closer look at. Because I'm always amenable to change. All right. I know the games start tonight though, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely.
This is like the in bracket.
But
to get into
Thursday,
the 64.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Gotcha.
Thursday is when the real fun gets started.
Very good.
Which should be a national holiday. Nobody really works on that day anyway.
So we got play-in scenarios, and we really want to focus on. We're going to the NBA now, guys. We're keeping it on the hardwood right now. We got play-in scenarios. We're going to focus on the Western Conference because, with the exception of the Pelicans, the Lakers, Warriors, Suns, Mavericks, and Kings are all kind of viable potentially for that play-in spot. So if I have this right currently, the Pelicans, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So the Pelicans are at 6. The Kings are at 7. The Mavericks are at, I counted that wrong.
No.
Pelicans
Pelicans
are
are 5th. Yeah, Pelicans
Kings are
5.
6.
Kings
Mavericks
are
are
6.
7. Suns are 8. Warriors are 9. And the Lakers are 10. So if the season were to end today, the scenario would be Lakers and Warriors would obviously play in. 7 and 8 would play. If 7 wins, they're in. They're good to go for the playoffs. The 8 would then play the winner of the Lakers Warriors, and that would obviously decide who that final seed would be. I can't help but sit here and look at this and just look at the Lakers and the Warriors records and go, I can't believe one of these teams is actually going to be eliminated, barring an unforeseen turn on either side, and then the Suns and the Mavericks too. I don't know exactly where the record stands, but I think the Suns and Mavericks have at least enough daylight in between them. It would take kind of a monumental collapse for one of them to end up back there. But they are still in the play-in scenario, obviously.
I mean, yeah, to your point, right? You got the
Two of
Kings,
those
you got
teams.
Dallas, and you have the Suns with basically the same record.
Sure.
Right? You know, the Kings are a half a game up in the loss column.
Yeah. So they could end up falling back in here too as well. The Pelicans seem to be the one right now, at least, have separated themselves. Yeah,
They have a little bit of distance, yeah.
in between.
The Clippers are falling apart, so if the Pelicans make on a run, they could jump up to the 4 seed, right? If not, if the Pelicans go on a losing streak, they can end up.
Well,
in the
I
play-in
said to you even during the break, I think the Clippers are doing the same thing they did for the bubble. They're kind of seed watching, and they're kind of picking and choosing when they want to go and play. I think it's going to end up biting them in the ass, but we'll see. They have not been playing like the team they played all year. They're supposed to be a stalwart lockdown defensive team. They haven't been that in recent weeks. I just don't like where they're trending right now, and health is a big concern for them too. But if we look at these scenarios right now, let's focus on this. Let's look at the 4 teams that are currently in the play-in scenario right now. Let's say if the season ends, who do you think makes it? Okay, so between Mavericks, Suns, Warriors, Lakers, who's rounding out those 7-8 spots for the playoffs?
Well, listen, I think, when you look at the LA Golden State matchup, right, I think you got to give the nod to the Lakers, right?
Even though the Warriors just beat them the last 2 meetings,
that is true. But remember, if I'm not mistaken, in that
AD
game,
got hurt in the last
got hurt
game. He
in
did.
that game. And
He
so
throws them
the
off a lot when he's
Warriors
on the
are
court.
lacking size.
I agree.
Right? That's the biggest thing. So if they match up with the Lakers, I don't think they match up tremendously well, right? Because
With the healthy AD.
with a healthy AD and their ability to turn up the defense, and I think that's what's going to change during the playoffs. That the Lakers are going to be able to really play big, play small, play fast, but play enough defense to slow down a team like the Warriors.
Yeah.
And so if I'm the Warriors, I want to try to get out of a situation where I have to play the Lakers. I'd want to play, Dallas. I'd want to play Phoenix to really have that opportunity for best success. In the Dallas-Phoenix matchup, I think that's going to be really good.
a great
I think
game.
that would be really interesting. Both teams.
2 offensive-oriented teams with some serious
Agreed.
firepower.
Now, Dallas, went out during free agency and got a little bit more size.
Yep. Gafford, PJ Washington.
Yep. The Suns aren't playing much defense.
They aren't.
Right? And so for me, that's going to be the X factor, the size versus the Suns' defensive ability. And so I think the intensity of the playoffs, I would give the nod to the Suns.
Interesting.
Right? I get it. We don't see the defense right now. But, I think I think they're preserving themselves. I think KD is gearing up, and he's going to turn it on during the playoffs.
So it's interesting that you bring this up because you're more of a Warriors fan. I'm not a Lakers fan, but I really like LeBron, so it's kind of forced me to pay attention to the Lakers more. I actually kind of oppose what you said about the Lakers-Warriors matchup.
Okay.
I actually favor the Warriors, and I'll tell you why. Let me preface this by saying if Jared Vanderbilt is to come back in time for that matchup, I would like the Lakers because now they have somebody to go and chase Curry around all those screens. He's length. And what always gives Curry problems? Teams with length that can guard him from multiple spots and step out and just contest his shots. But if they have no Vando, here's the problem I see with the Lakers-Warriors matchup. I don't see anybody on the perimeter that can sit there and chase around Steph Curry around all those. God bless Austin Reeves. He's a great offensive player. He's a great isolation player. He's not a very good defender. Neither is D'Angelo Russell. What it forces AD to do is it forces him to come further away from the basket to come and be more of a deterrent to someone like Steph. Yeah. So while he does that, it's going to expose one of the Lakers' already weakness. They are not a very good rebounding team, especially when AD has to come further away from the basket because outside of AD, it's not like a tremendous amount of size unless they play like a specific matchup where they bring in like a Jackson Hayes, but then they have holes in other regard. The best lineup obviously is AD at the 5, LeBron at the 4, Rui Hachimura now at the 3, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell. It's their best and most potent lineup offensively, but it leaves a lot of holes for them defensively. And a team like the Warriors, who are very perimeter-oriented, very fast, a lot of screens, I don't like it without a Vando matchup. I think Curry would just find ways to cook them up over the course of that game. And I just don't, again, it's one game. The thing I also don't like about the Lakers is when I watch the Warriors, I see lapses. I don't see lack of effort. I see lack of effort constantly when I watch the Lakers play. It's the reason that they're in the scenario in the first place. If you look at their record against some of the top teams in the West, they have one of the best records in the league against leading teams across the NBA. But then they lose all these lackluster games to teams like the Warriors or teams that are even seated further behind. To me, it just shows a lack of effort. In a one-game scenario, as much as I love LeBron, I trust what the Warriors are doing more right now and their cohesiveness.
But listen to even what you just said. Everything that you're saying, it's about Steph Curry, right?
Yes.
Other people got
there is a lot on him.
Everybody else got to score too, right? He's
shown a lot
young. He's shown a lot, but he's young, right? So think about just a matchup.
Does he step up in a playing game?
You got Curry, you got D'Angelo Russell, right? So from a scoring standpoint, they're not equal. They're not the same, right? But Russell can put up some points, right, to offset the amount of points that Curry is going to score.
Possibly,
but
yeah, sure.
Who's going to put up 25 when LeBron puts up 25? Who's going to put up 25 and 15 when AD does that, right? Clay's not doing that. Kuminga's not doing that. Chris Paul's not doing that.
Watch out for this dude Podziemski, but to your point, I don't know if he's doing that.
He's solid,
yet.
Like young guy.
I
like him too, right? So from a matchup standpoint, from a scoring standpoint,
it's funny. We like
that's where I see the difference.
We like the other guy's team too.
Yeah.
And I will say this: you do bring up the one point. If it is a size thing, the Lakers do have bigger size, and one thing we've seen over the course of history of the NBA playoffs, usually the larger team in a playoff scenario, more times than not, ends up being the victor.
I mean, just go back.
This is one game.
Just go to the foundation of rebounding, right? The Lakers is going to, the Warriors are towards the bottom in that category, and that's what's really going to separate them, right? The offensive rebounds, right? Not getting less fast breaks. These are the things that are.
Neither team is a great rebounding team, so it might just come down to which team just plays harder.
Again, but you're basing everything off of the regular season. I mean, I'm expecting everything to pick up during the playoffs.
That's fair.
And that's when we're going to see the difference.
That's fair. So let's say this, right? We don't have to pick a winner or loser, but either the Lakers or the Warriors, they're going to get the loser of the Suns Mavericks as it currently stands right now. If you're the Lakers or the Warriors, which team would you rather see?
Listen, I think, the way it stands now, like I said, I would give the nod to Phoenix. That means then it's Dallas.
So Phoenix wins, you're saying.
Yep,
Mavericks hang back. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then, if it is Dallas versus LA, I think that would be a heck of a matchup. I think they both match up well with each other, and I think Luka might just go off, and I would give the nod to Dallas.
So, quick question on that. Basically, then what you're saying is that Luka isn't going to allow his son Devin Booker to win a game against him because he's kind of that's kind of the word on the street right now is that Devin Booker is Luka's little son. Luka kind of has owned him in like these last couple of matchups that they played against each other. I tend to agree with you, and I'll tell you why. I just think that if the Suns and the Mavericks go at it, while Luka does extremely well, and the Suns really don't have anybody to match up with him, I feel like if they just get into a shootout type scenario, man, Phoenix has some firepower when you play a game like that. And it's just who's going to stop Durant, who's going to stop Booker, and then who's going to stop Beal on Dallas's defense. As good as Dallas can be inside of a game, I just think in that type of a scenario, for whatever reason, I just see the Suns like outgunning them in a one-game scenario. In a series, it might be different, but in a one-game scenario, I think I like Phoenix.
I agree. I agree. And so, but my concern with the Lakers is that they're getting older, right?
too.
But I do think they're preserving
They
themselves.
lack perimeter defense like badly.
Because of their size, I think they could turn it on. My issue with the Warriors, I don't think they have enough offensive help. I don't think they have enough defensive help, right? And I know that sounds crazy to say, but because of their lack of size, their lack of rebounding gives them less opportunities. Those less opportunities put them at a disadvantage, and so they're gonna be chasing. So when they face these larger size teams, now if they ended up playing the Kings, if they ended up playing
which is
Pelicans,
an awful matchup for the Lakers,
right?
Awful matchup.
Yeah,
they cannot guard their
them.
backcourt.
They
Can't
swept them.
make you have
but
no
I think
answers.
it's a perfect matchup for the Warriors.
The Warriors.
Right?
It's so funny how the matchups work out like that. Yep.
So if I'm Phoenix and Dallas, I'm trying to push to get that 6th spot to not be in that situation and make sure the Kings end up in that scenario. But we're gonna have to see how it plays out. But I think that's gonna come down to the very last day.
Okay. So do you think any chance the Kings end up falling back? Do the Suns or the Mavericks end up taking that spot from the Kings? Or do you think it kind of stays as it looks right now?
Listen, looking at some of the
records?
future matchups that come up, the Suns got the 76ers, they got the Hawks, they got the Spurs, they got the Spurs again. Then they have Nuggets,
I think the Lakers
Thunder.
have one more with the Warriors too as well,
They
so
do
that
have one
could
more
play
with the
large.
Warriors. So the Suns' schedule isn't
now it's a must-win.
outrageous. But here's the thing. They basically play all the teams that are in front of them. They're going to play the Pelicans. They're going to play the Timberwolves. They play the Pelicans twice.
The Timberwolves
They
aren't fully
play the
healthy
Clippers
now,
twice.
too.
Not at all. So I like the Suns matchup. And looking at the Dallas situation now, they got 2 easy ones with the Jazz, and they got 2 with the Kings. That's going to be
Those are
the
huge.
big deciding factor right there. But then they got Houston. They got the Warriors. They got the Hawks. Warriors again. So Dallas has a fairly easy schedule with the Pistons.
I'm sorry. I had it
and
wrong.
Miami.
So Golden State is 10 right now. LA is 9. I thought it was the other way. Not that it really matters.
They just
played
played,
each
yeah,
other
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
but yeah.
So I listen, I like that matchup in LA now. I think LA has a little bit of a harder road, right? They got the 76ers, they got the Pacers, but they got the Bucks, right?
Are you looking at the remaining?
At the remaining schedule.
Gotcha.
So it's going to be real
Those
interesting.
head-to-heads now become so much more crucial now that you're dwindling down. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're going to see, again, Dallas has 2 head-to-head matchups with the Kings. That's going to be a huge deciding factor. I think whoever wins that is going to end up in the 6th seed.
Let me ask you this, too, with the Pelicans. We don't have much time. You think they're, like, legit? You think they could win a first round? Because in theory, they're sitting right now where they would play the L.A. Clippers in the first round. Any shot they could win that series? Because I know they've given them some problems in the regular season, too.
A
lot of beef.
If Zion is healthy and word on the street is he's down about 20, 25 pounds.
25 pounds. Yeah,
right?
he's lost
so that
some
means
weight,
he's
man.
going
I
to
love
go
it.
into the
Knicks,
playoffs.
go get him.
Slow down now.
Sorry.
Healthier and stronger.
My friend's going to yell at me for that.
I think the Pelicans can really make some noise, and I would anticipate them getting out of the first round.
Okay. So you like the Pelicans to possibly go and upset the Clippers in a first-round series?
If that's
the scenario,
that's the matchup. That's going to be difficult for the Clippers. My fear with the Clippers is that they want to turn it on, and I don't know if physically they have it to just be able to turn it on.
Yeah. No, you said the perfect word, physically, because they are so predicated on the health of their roster as to how far they can go. And I just don't like the trend that I've been seeing them in recent weeks. So I wouldn't be shocked. Now, again, regular season matchups, much different than a playoff series, obviously. The Clippers definitely have them in experience. But New Orleans, this is a young and hungry team with a guy on Zion who I think is a matchup nightmare for the Clippers because Kawhi's a great defender, and Paul George is a great defender. They are not built, I think, to guard somebody like Zion over the course of a 6 or 7 game series.
And remember,
So
they
he
got
presents
CJ,
a matchup problem.
They got CJ McCollum and they got Brandon Ingram,
Yeah,
right?
no,
So
they got
have
dudes.
talent with shooters around
They
them.
got dudes.
That nice little trio sets
They
them
got
up for success.
Valanciunas too, as well, right?
Absolutely.
I think Valanciunas is their big man. So I mean, no, listen, it's shaping up to be a very interesting NBA playoff scenario, and can't wait till it gets there, so we can probably get together, maybe and watch some games too as the series.
Oh,
get more
absolutely. I'll be
magnified.
playoff ready.
All right. So listen, folks, that is all the time we have for segment number 2. But don't go anywhere. You know we got one more segment, and we'll be right back to run it back on segment number 3. What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mallory, joined once again by my co-host, Mr. DaCosta. It is the final segment, segment number 3 of Run It Back. Beautiful people, before I forget, please like, comment, and subscribe. We're looking for those 5-star reviews on those major platforms. Again, it's not that hard. You see that little bell icon right there? You click it, you're subscribed. Give us a little like and a thumbs up here too as well. And you saw some of our favorite people that we like to interact with. We shout them out too as well. So give us some feedback.
Keep it coming.
Maybe we shout your name out too as well. All right? But ready for this final little segment right here?
Let's ride.
We're going to talk a little bit about the Kansas City Chiefs, a signing
Super
that
Bowl
happened.
champs.
Super Bowl champs, all right, going for that three-peat. They had a little signing of themselves too as well. They signed Marquise Hollywood Brown, recently of the Arizona Cardinals.
Yep.
Was a free agent. They signed him to 1 year, $7 million. Give me your thoughts on the signing.
Listen, incredible value.
Could not-
Incredible value.
could not agree more.
He's a clear number 2 receiver.
It's a 1,000-yard receiver, too.
Great speed. And I think Hollywood is taking a playbook out of Juju Smith-Schuster.
In terms
right?
of like the role he'll somewhat
Yep.
fill.
Go to the Kansas City Chiefs, be a reliable target,
year,
catch
go get
the
a
ball,
bag.
go be a professional, then go get the bag.
And you might even go
Right?
get a championship on your way to that as well.
100%. So you get the chip, then you go get the bag,
Yeah.
right?
Usually when you get the
He
chip,
had
you
a
get the bag.
Great season with the Ravens and really showed
Ravens,
his
I
potential.
apologize. My
No,
bad.
it was
Yeah, yeah.
Ravens, then
Oh,
Cardinals,
okay.
right?
I want to make sure.
And so, what's it called? So Hollywood now is really, I think he wants to play with a
Sure.
good quarterback, right?
Yep.
Like nobody wants to play crappy. The better the quarterback, the more you get the ball, the more reliable, the more opportunities you get. So I really think Hollywood is going to eat this up. And at a $7 million price tag, I think he said, you know what? I'd rather go take $7 million with the champs than $10 million somewhere else to go play with Patrick Mahomes.
be playing in prominent
learn this
football
offense,
games, yes.
And maybe he proves himself and they give him a nice bag. Maybe not the biggest bag,
Sure.
but a nice bag. But ultimately,
Super
this
Bowl
is his
champs too
opportunity.
always get a chance. They usually get overpaid too if you come up. Not that I'm saying it's going to happen definitely, but you have a shot to go and compete for a title, potentially playing for KC next year.
Absolutely. How do you feel about the move?
I love it, and I'll tell you what. You already alluded to him fitting that like Juju Smith-Schuster role. Look at the Chiefs last year. Obviously, they're the Super Bowl champs, so it's less like, well, they're the champs. How do they improve? They could still improve, obviously. Their offense wasn't as electric as we're used to. It wasn't quite as dynamic as we're used to. They were working in a new rookie receiver. Travis Kelce's getting a little bit older. So this is now another reliable, proven commodity, a weapon to work into the offense. And while he's kind of working off that 2 role, you get Rashee Rice now in year number 2, a lot more confident. You also have McCole Hardman, who I think this affects and actually does good things for too as well. Because you get Rashee Rice, you get Marquise Brown, you get Travis Kelce, and then you get McCole Hardman to kind of fill in those little gaps as kind of like that slot little gadget. I can take the jet sweeps. I can take the little passes. It's an extra guy that just kind of flows off of the offense. So again, it just gives you a new variable for offenses to go and defend. And their offense, again, for all the things about their offense last year, they still were a top 10, I think, top 5 offense in total overall production. Points was the biggest thing. They weren't scoring like we have come accustomed to seeing the Chiefs scoring. So I think that McCole Hardman now being obviously back in and comfortable with that team, and then adding a weapon like a Brown and these other guys. Travis Kelce's obviously still Travis Kelce. And our boy, Isaiah Pacheco, has really found his role in that backfield, okay? He's a thumper. He's a bruiser. He kind of carries them home at the end of games too as well. I love the move. I thought it was a no-brainer signing. I think the points that you highlight too are great because it's great for the Chiefs and it's great for the Browns. It's two sides that both recognize, hey, we can both use each other at least.
No,
for
I
the
mean, listen,
stopgap.
Hollywood is going to stretch the field, right?
Yeah.
Like since Tyreek left, they're missing
Yep.
that one receiver down the
Yep.
field threat, but you got to be reliable. MVS was really good. He had tremendous speed, but he was made more of a track guy that he could run fast, but he can't catch. Now, he caught the big passes in the Super Bowl, and he's earned the championship with them because he did good things while they were together.
Yep.
But ultimately, Hollywood Brown has the potential, has the flashes to be a number one.
Sure.
Right? But he's a legitimate number 2 wide receiver, 75 plus receptions, 1,200 plus yards. Now, again, he's not a big touchdown
Will
red
he
zone
do that
guy,
in KC? Probably
right?
not, but I mean,
You know,
he's, yeah.
but I still think he'll get 7, 8 plus touchdowns, right?
He should be around 1,000 yards too as well.
Agreed.
Yep.
So, but here's the thing: Hollywood Brown is going to stretch the field,
Yep.
right? Then you have Rashid Rice working the slant, working the short-term
And
routes.
he's a decent red zone target too.
Agreed.
Yep.
And now you got Travis Kelce working the middle.
Yeah, it opens up the middle of the field more again for Kelsey to operate.
You brought up the red zone. I think what they're missing now is a big body receiver.
Just a big body that.
So again,
the one other that you could throw
look
to.
for Mitchell out of Texas
Oh,
with the
wow.
32nd overall pick.
You like that, Adonai
Calling
Mitchell
it.
one.
I'm calling it.
Well, so let me ask you this move, okay, in the long term, what do you think happens? And then we'll kind of go with KC on a larger scale picture. What do you think happens with L'Jarius Sneed?
Listen, ultimately they got to trade him, right? I think they got to trade him.
It's a large number for 1 year.
Yes, I thought there was a clear path between the Lions and the
Lions
Chiefs.
picked up, I think, 3 new
Right.
defensive back
They
personnel.
made a trade with Tampa Bay
Yep.
for Davis, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting, right? We in our production meeting, you brought up a really good point. I think maybe they use Sneed, or you think, right? I should
Yeah.
say they move Sneed.
They want to get 2 first-round picks.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably they're looking for a 2024 first round pick. I think the likelihood is they could definitely get a 2025 first round pick.
Okay.
And so for me, that you have to start to look at, all right, if they're going to trade up or if they're going to just trade him for a first round pick, what teams would actually do it, right? So for me, right, looking at the mock draft scenario, you start to look at as early as the Bears with the 9th overall pick. Right. Just look at how they've behaved.
pulling
Right.
it
They're
up,
going to
too.
have a rookie quarterback. They're going to be able to. They brought in Keenan Allen. They
Yep.
already have DJ. They have
Oh, you're saying
Sweat
maybe
from
do they
last
go
year.
try and bolster
Go
the
get Sneed. Solidify your defense. You could pay him a big contract. Keep him right, and maybe swap with the.
I think it'll be
Chiefs.
harder with the Bears. I think the Bears really want those 2 first-round picks because I think they want to just
So
add.
what I'm saying is they give up the 9th pick, trade back. The Chiefs give up their 32nd pick, right? And then they go down from 9 to 32nd, get Sneed, so they still have a first rounder. That would be
So you're saying they package Sneed and 32nd to move up to 9
to 9
with the Bears.
and go get one of the top left tackles in the draft.
That's interesting.
I love that, from a move standpoint, because they're only really giving up 1 pick to do something like that. But other teams that they could possibly want to engage with, right? Does the Jets look to get move back and pair a Sneed with a Sauce Gardner? I don't
Okay.
think they could afford him, so I don't really think that's going to be the case. Then the only other team that I think would be interested in something like that is the Seattle Seahawks. I could see the Seattle Seahawks, right? Trading, giving up the 16th overall pick to get the number 1 cornerback in terms of shutdown production last year, right? They have room to sign him to a big contract. Geno's contract is flexible. They got rookies. There's no huge veterans on that team. They got rid of Bobby Wagner. So that's an opportunity where if I'm Seattle, I'd be willing to give up the 16th overall pick to get one of the top 3-5 cornerbacks in the league, right? 27 years old for potentially like a straight up 16th overall pick for Sneed, because you're going to have to sign him. I think that's where I see that type of move happening. Everyone else, I don't really think it fits that much. Maybe the Rams, right, now that they've lost Donald, but ultimately you got to remember the Chiefs want to get high enough to do this to be able to get one of the elite tackles.
Sure.
So he would have to be there at 16 for it to be worth them, or can they move up into that top 12 to be able to make it happen?
Well, so I think you and I are both in alignment that they would definitely like to go and add another weapon just to make themselves more potent on offense, okay? And I think the nice thing about having that 32nd pick is that you basically, at 32, you're the last pick of the first round, so you just pick like BPA. What is the BPA? What is the best player available right there? So they kind of aren't relegated to picking any one position, but this is about as deep a receiver draft as I've ever seen. So I wouldn't be shocked if they could go and get one at 32nd. I agree with you. They need to go and figure out the left tackle, right? Devontae Davis obviously leaves the team, so they have to go and figure out that position. I don't know if they're going to be able to move up into the top 10 with the trade scenario that you pose. I think for them, it's more important to try and keep the 2 first-rounders and use L'Jarius Sneed to kind of lure someone in to get as high as they can.
Well, they got 1 first-rounder now, right?
They have one right now.
Right, 32nd.
If you use L'Jarius Sneed, though, you could possibly
Get
have
your second.
2 first-rounders, which I think they love. If the Chiefs have shown you anything from that Tyreek Hill draft, they trust in their draft process. They trust in the scouting department. I think the head is actually, the GM is Veach, I believe.
Yep, Brett Veach.
They used to work together over in Philly before. He came over from Philly, just like Andy did too as well. So they obviously have a very good scouting department over there. If they can move anywhere from, again, I love your scenario where if they could go and find one of the elite tackles, I think it might cost them too much to move up. I think the whole point is to try and keep the 2 first so they can get the receiver like you talk and still an adequate, solid left tackle. If they can go and get that, I think they trust in their scouting, for one, to go and find that, but 2, the coaching and the system to where this doesn't necessarily have to be the best left tackle in the league. He's just got to be above average. If we can find somebody who can be above average at that left tackle spot, our scheme will figure this out. Again, what are they kind of trying to embody or follow the blueprint of? Somewhat the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots always had great offensive line units. You never remember the left tackle being the best left tackle in the league necessarily for the Patriots. So I think their biggest thing is move somewhere. If they can get into that 15 to 20 range of picks, they can probably go and find a good, serviceable, above average left tackle, just in terms of NFL starting standards. I think that's the move they're going to try to make. Now, who do they end up making that deal with? I'm not quite sure. But I would say L'Jarius Sneed at 27 is right at that cutoff point where you can still go and get a viable first rounder for him. I think you have to make that move right now. McDuffie is a solid corner. Spags is an outstanding D coordinator. And they re-signed the most important part of their defense, Chris Jones. As long as you've got an adequate pass rush that can go and get after it, your cornerbacks don't have to be awesome. It obviously helps. We saw that with their defense this year, but it's kind of like give a little, take a little, trying to find balance overall with their team. They're trying to add a little bit more on the offensive side to create a little bit of that balance, right? But then go and get young on the defensive side to keep those controllable contracts. They figure, I think, as long as we got Chris Jones up front, we got to move L'Jarius Sneed and make ourselves as strong on offense as we can. So that's kind of what I look at the Chiefs doing right now.
Well, listen, I think there might be a run on wide receivers and quarterbacks.
Could be.
So I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's why I like the idea when you brought it up, because if you really think about it, if there's a run on quarterbacks, right,
Sure.
in for the top 10, and then there's a run on receivers, right? So we're talking about, Caleb Williams, we're talking about Jaden Daniels, we're talking about Drake May, right? All the reports now are talking about, J.J. McCarthy going in the top 10, maybe
Sure.
going in the top 5.
I've had some breakdowns that have made me change my view on him a little bit too.
Right.
But go
Yeah,
on.
I definitely think he could be solid. Right. Our
Yeah.
top quarterbacks.
Yes.
We had that argument. Right. So I could see the Vikings, right, moving up, trying to get into that fifth
Sounds
slot.
like the rumor.
Right.
That sounds like the rumor
exactly.
right now.
So now all of a sudden,
Trading up with the
right,
Chargers.
So that's 4 quarterbacks, right, in the top 5.
Yeah.
Right. And so now
Which
what
could
that
easily
means,
happen in this draft.
100, and Marvis Harrison Jr. is going. Napers is going to be up there.
Yeah.
Roma Dunze is going to be up
Yes.
there, right?
Hopefully,
so all
maybe
of a
to our
sudden,
boys in Big Blue.
but think about it. All of a
hopeful
sudden
thinking.
now, that's 7-8 picks, right? Offensive tackle's going to go in there. Everybody loves Brock Bowers, so before you know it, right, that second and third tackle might drop into that 12, 13, 14 slot. right? And so for me, if I'm the Chiefs, I want to get ahead of the Raiders, right, at 13, and New Orleans at 14 to maybe
I see what you're playing
snag,
out.
to be able to snag that tackle.
We wait almost up until the draft. Maybe we dangle around and see L'Jarius Sneed if there's any deals. But then all of a sudden you get to the draft, you see kind of the direction of where it's going, and all of a sudden, oh, wow, there's still like some good tackles here on the board now. Now we go and dangle a carrot in front of some team. Hey, we got a L'Jarius Sneed here. Looks like you could use a little bit of help in your defensive backfield. I like the scenario that you posed to as well.
And listen, and it's reasonable. And don't forget, you got that big time defensive end out of Florida State, right? That everybody loves, right? So he's gonna go up high.
I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, I got them all here. But right, like it, so when you start to look at it, right, like we're talking about Dallas Turner, right?
Yes.
Dallas Turner
from Bama.
So you start to look at those things, and the Mitchell kid out of Toledo, everybody loves. So I could see him falling to the Raiders. So if there's a run on quarterbacks, don't be surprised if it starts to fall that way. That opens the door. But we do think the Raiders and the Saints are going to be tackle driven.
Okay.
Now they may go after the Florida State kid, or so they have defensive coaches, so they may go that way. But I think it's a great opportunity for the Chiefs to try to get above them to snag that tackle.
I like that. And you just put another thing in my head because you keep talking about the receiver. Now, at 32, would somebody like a Johnny Wilson from Florida State still be around? I don't know. It's possible. He's 6'7". He's a very big body. But there's another guy that I can't help but think, what did the Patriots always have that you could just count on every single year when it came to receivers? That good old slot guy that could also kind of work the little intermediate routes.
God.
You know who I'm going to say?
Come on, man.
You know what I'm going to say? And I brought this up when we talked about our top 5 receivers.
There's not a reason to bring it up.
At number 32, don't be shocked if Ladd McConkey could end up on the Kansas City Chiefs too as well. Because at 32 again, now, do I think it's likely that he gets taken at 32? No, probably not. He looks to me more like most of the time slot receivers are like anywhere from the second to a third round grade, but sometimes it just comes down to fit. So again, if you're talking about this whole run on receivers and that's just the next available one, I could see that as possible. I tend to more lean in your direction. I think if they want anything, they'd probably want a bigger body. But when you have a Rice and you have a Brown, it's kind of like Kelsey is getting older. You do have to kind of think about that plan for life after Kelsey. Who's going to be the next guy to work that? Whether it's a tight end or it's someone like a slot receiver. I'm just saying I could see a universe where
I can see that in the third, fourth round, them go after a really good tight end, right? And listen, like I said, because
wait till next year for that boy out of Michigan.
There's going to be run on quarterbacks. There's going to be a run on receivers. The receiver category really has a lot of depth.
I think this is probably the deepest.
The tight end,
that's the deepest position.
You might get a great tight end in the 5th round is my point, right? And so that would, in any other year, maybe a 3rd round guy. And so that's what's going to happen in this draft, right? People are going to go after their need. They're going to go after some of these top receivers, top quarterbacks. Because remember, Bo Nix still has to go, right? Penix still has to go.
Sure.
So in that 1st round, so if 6 quarterbacks go in the 1st round, probably 3 of them don't belong with them, right? So that's
26 picks,
right. So some good quality players are going to fall into the 2nd round.
Yeah, no, there's definitely going to be. This is going to be one of those drafts too, where because of how heavy it is on the quarterback position side of things, you got to really make your money in those later rounds because there's going to be some high-level value for you to get in the later rounds just because of how quarterback heavy this draft is at least breaking out to be. Now, we're all talking about this, now we don't know what happens come draft night. But I would assume, I agree with you, within those first 5 to 6 picks, at least 4 quarterbacks are going to be taken. And based on what I'm hearing now, it sounds like some of the news, what you and I had talked about, that could even be changing because this J.J. McCarthy buzz, it's really gaining a lot of steam in terms of how high he could end up being picked. One of the reasons that he's flying up a lot of the charts and radars too is because they say of all the quarterbacks, he's the only one that ran a true pro-style offense. Harbaugh runs a pro-style offense, okay? Build at the line of scrimmage. I want my quarterback to be able to read defenses, check, and get into the right play. That's what J.J. did. J.J. did something else, though, that was really important. anytime he needed to go and make a crucial completion on third down. You and I were texting during that Michigan-Ohio State game, and I text you right after
zinged
the
a
throw.
few.
He zinged one right in the middle. It was a 3rd and 8. They had to have it between two defenders. That's what the NFL is, being able to make plays on third down. So he's got the size, got the measurables. Now, I think you and I both agree, if I'm bringing in a quarterback in the first round, I would have liked to have had a little bit more throwing, on his resume. But nonetheless, I think he's going to go higher than a lot of people anticipate.
Listen, if JJ fell to the Vikings at 11 or the Broncos at 12,
you just don't like him in the top 10.
I just don't like him in the top 10, right? I think JJ has a lot of great opportunities, and I think he really can be successful. I do. Now, here's the thing. I would love him on the Vikings because they have a great offensive setup.
Yes.
Justin Jefferson, Russell.
Kevin
right?
O'Connell, I believe the
Kevin
coach's
O'Connell
name is too.
the
He's a
coach,
good play caller.
right? And so
He's a McVay
I
guy.
love
He's
him
from that whole
in
tree.
that system,
Yep.
right? And so that's where I'd like to see him, right? But at the same time, if he ended up with Sean Payton on the Broncos, that's also a good, healthy situation for them. I would not want to see him on the Raiders, right? Or the Saints.
They got Gardner Minshew now anyway. He's the savior.
There you go, right? So that's the team I'd like to see him set up with.
All right. Well, listen, it's going to be really interesting, but I think the one thing or the place that we're basically both aligned on is when it comes to the Chiefs repeating next year, fix that left tackle, add a potential another weapon. You can probably replace even somebody like you lose L'Jarius Sneed. I'm not saying your second round pick's going to be anywhere as good as L'Jarius Sneed was last year. You could argue he was the best quarterback in the league last year, easily top 3 to 5. But if you can get a second rounder that's just adequate, a good and above average corner, you bring in Jones back, the rest of your defense is still intact. I say you fix that left tackle and that wide receiver position. I think the Chiefs are poised and in a position to go and be one of the favorites again.
But if I'm also the Chiefs, I'm looking to add a defensive tackle, right?
Sure.
To start to pave the way for
gotta
the
think
next
about those
Aaron
two.
Donald.
Chris Jones and
Chris
Travis
Jones,
Kelce. They are both getting older.
100%. So to your point, add a tight end, add a defensive tackle, but the priority is left tackle. The priority is adding another receiver. So I definitely think those are positions and opportunity of need. Plus, they also just want to get younger, right? They're spending a lot of money on the offensive line. Sure. So you want to start to bring in people to groom them to then, phase out a Tooney, phase out a Jawan Taylor because you got younger and stronger and they've known your system. I'm really big into the red shirting, bring in a player, let them learn the system, let them develop and start them year 2. Right? Because you learn the speed, you learn to read defenses, you learn to become a pro, right? And now set yourself up for success. So I'm heavy on, all right, Chris Jones is there. Go get your next Chris Jones.
Sure.
Let him learn from Chris Jones. Sure. So when Chris Jones' 4 or 5 year contract is up, right, and you got to pay the next guy, well, he's learned from.
And you can find good D tackles in second, third rounds too as well.
And that's also why I think the Kansas City Chiefs secondary has been so good. If you really look at how they manage that, they've always had a veteran, right, at one cornerback position, a veteran at safety, and then they brought in Young on the other side. And then what do? They replace the old side. Those younger guys are now veterans, and they do it all over again. I'd like to see something like that on the defensive line, and specifically in the defensive tackle area. Maybe get a little bit more of a rush defensive end, defensive tackle.
I love it. And listen, man, that's kind of our breakdown of the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to try to break down teams as we get closer to this draft. So we're going to try to hit on all of your guys' teams, get to all the NFL teams, but that's all we got. Now, I don't mean to scare you, but
Are you just going crazy this episode, man? Are you all right?
You know what that was? That was the sounds that Mike Tyson was making. Hitting that heavy bag, man. Getting them training sessions in for Jake Paul.
I thought this was another one of Mallory's madness moments.
Mallory's madness. Well, it is. It is March Madness now, so 'tis the season. But want to get a little bit more follow-up on this Tyson and Jake Paul kind of fight and scenario that's breaking down. Obviously, we discussed this last week. We know we're both going to watch it. I believe Mike Tyson.
Netflix, you got my money.
Oh, yeah. Mike Tyson, I believe, is quoted as saying, are you ready to face the God of War now? I thought that was just a video game, but when Mike Tyson say it, I get a little bit frightened. So as I unpack this matchup furthermore, and this is going to come off probably like a Jake Paul hating session because I just can't help it. Sometimes it's that easy. Jake Paul keeps saying that he wants to be taken serious as a boxer. Okay.
I mean, he bit off Tyson's ear. Didn't you see that meme?
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. So silly. You want to be taken seriously as a boxer. So your way of going about being taken seriously as a boxer is challenging a near 60-year-old man who hasn't fought a real professional boxing match in 20 years. I'm not counting the exhibition against Roy Jones, who, again, I'm not taking it away from Tyson, but I'm just going actual professional boxing matches. I guess I just would like to pose the scenario. How does fighting an almost 60-year-old retired boxer who hasn't fought in almost 20 years, where does that go in terms of the legitimacy to your boxing credentials?
Do you not pay attention to anything we've talked about this episode?
I'll try.
Right? Why is LT? Why is Dion? Right? Aaron Donald, the greatest.
Oh, the fear factor. The fear factor.
You want to talk about fear in Mike Tyson? Right? So many people lost the fight before they even stepped in the ring with
Mike Tyson stare down.
Right? So at the end of the day, like I said, Jake Paul has an opportunity to fight Mike Tyson at any age. And if he happens to beat him, if he happens to knock him out, at the end of the day, it's going to be a win on Jake Paul's resume, on his record. And so he'll be able to say the baddest, the most feared, the most relentless, the God of War, he beat. That's what it's about.
When he was 58.
Well, it doesn't matter.
That's got to matter some.
Not at all.
Would he have beaten him in his prime? Would he have challenged him in his prime?
Of course, I get what? He'd have pissed in his boots.
Exactly. The only reason he's challenging now is because he's almost 58. I only go to, you want to be seen as a boxer. Challenge an active boxer. I sit here and I say this because it's something for us. Yes. That's what this comes down to. That's
right?
all.
So why are you hating on the man trying to get paid, man? Why are you hating on Jake Paul trying to get the bag? And that means you're hating on Tyson trying to get a few extra shekels.
No, I'll never hate on
well.
I'll never hate on Iron Mike. Never. Okay, because of what he's done in the career in the sport of boxing. But I'm a guy who say what you mean and mean what you say. Actions speak louder than words. It's just like good old Jerry Jones down in Dallas. All I care about is winning a Super Bowl. Do you, Jerry? Do you, Jerry? All reports are like,
hey, somehow he always goes back to the Cowboys. What can I say?
I can't help it. I guess when I'm talking about people that want to be taken legitimate and say things, but their actions don't line up with their words. All right. Yet I still want to watch this fight. As I break it down further, I will say this about the fight. There's got to be something that Jake knows, maybe that we potentially don't, because I've watched Jake's. I've gone back and watched. I haven't actually bought the fights myself, but I've gone back and I've watched all of Jake's fights after they've happened. Okay, the only active boxer he went against, he fought. But I was saying to Shawnee during a break in the meeting, it was competitive at least. It's not like he got knocked out or destroyed. He was thoroughly outboxed, in my opinion, but competitive. He was on his feet. He did score a knockdown in the fight. I guess what I sit back here and I kind of wonder or I contemplate is, what does he kind of know potentially, or what does he think going? Is it just a money grab, or does Jake Paul legitimately come in and think, not only am I going to win this match, I'm going to dominate? And if so, why?
Well, look, like you said earlier, let's take a step back and look at Mike Tyson's most recent fight with Roy Jones Jr.
Sure.
Right? Mike looked a little tired.
As
right?
the rounds went on.
He looked a little slower, right? So ultimately, Jake is saying, all right, he lost a step.
Sure.
Right? And so look at his last fight. So you know what?
So if there's any time, now's the time.
Right? I could wear him out. I could outlast him. I'm younger, right? I won't say he's stronger, right? But he's in better physical shape.
Sure.
All right. So you know what? I'm going to take on Iron Mike. But guess what? Mike said, you know what? That last fight, I wore out a little too quickly.
He's in a full training camp right now.
Stamina up. 3 days in, he was ferocious again. So all of a sudden,
fight's in July, right?
Right. I think it is in July. July on
June or
Netflix.
July. So he's going to get like 3-4 months to train leading up to this.
Oh,
match.
he's going to be prepared. He's going to be prepared. Where versus the Roy Jones situation, that was much
July,
more
right?
fun.
Yeah.
That was much more entertainment. I don't think Mike is taking this one as entertainment.
Yeah. You think he's coming for real?
I think he's gonna hurt him.
Prediction. Who wins?
Oh, Tyson in 6.
You got Tyson in 6. Yeah. He knocks him out in like the 6th round. Yes. I think it's set up for 8 total. I'm going to go...
Because Mike's going to bruise him up a little bit.
I'm going to go Tyson, and I'm going to go Tyson inside of 4. I'm going to go Tyson inside of 4. If he has this long to train, I got to feel like Iron Mike is coming in, and he wants to go and get the W on this one. But listen, folks... That is all the time we have for this week's episode of Run It Back. It was an action-packed and fun-filled episode. I hope you enjoy it. And please give us the feedback. And once again, please like, comment, and subscribe. It's not that hard. Click that little bell button. And if you like something we said, give us a little thumbs up. And please always comment. We are about that action in the comments. And like I said, you'll go and get a special shout out. But I am Shane Mallor with my co-host,
Ricky DeCosta.
And we will see you next week when we
Run It Back.